All right, so we are live now. So, hello everyone, and welcome to our February section of Ask Me Anything at the Women's Network Students Community. My name is Chinazebere Mary Arokwe, and I'm a co-chair of the SCG Women's Network Student Leaders. And I am happy to introduce today's guest, who is Dr. Estella Atekwana. Dean Estella Atekwana provides academic and administrative leadership for the largest college on campus. She oversees 37 departments and programs with more than 900 faculty across the arts, humanities, social sciences, and mathematical and physical sciences. Atekwana began her tenure as the Dean of College of Letters and Science in August 2021. She previously served as the Dean at the University of Delaware's College of Earth, Ocean and Environment and as Regents Professor, Sunshare Professor, and head of the Bones Pickens School of Geology at Oklahoma State University. She also serves as a member of the governing board of Botswana International University of Science and Technology. Atekwana is a renowned interdisciplinary geophysicist whose research pioneered the field of biogeophysics, providing breakthrough understanding of geophysical signatures of microbial processes in the earth. This work has been recognized by several prestigious awards. Her research also focuses on tectonics and geodynamics, advancing understanding of how continents break up. At the University of Delaware, Atekwana led efforts to establish a climate scholars program, a climate change science and policy hub, an offshore wind skills academy, and Eco Entrepreneurship Program. Dean Atekwana is a champion for diversity, equity, and inclusion. She has prioritized student success and equitable outcomes for all students and is committed to enhancing their upward mobility. Her vision as Dean is to lead all academic departments in the College of Letters and Science to new heights in academic excellence and inclusion, and to catalyze convergent research that integrates the sciences, humanities, and the social sciences to provide solutions for societal grand challenges. A first generation student herself, she received her bachelor's and master's degrees in geology from Howard University and her doctorate in geophysics from the House University, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. She is a fellow of the Geological Society of America and the American Geophysical Union. So, hello, Dr. Estella, and welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you, Ma. So, we'll be jumping on to the very first question. From your profile, I understood that you were a pre-med student before you decided to switch to geology, um, because you were inspired by a teacher. So, I would like you to elaborate on why you chose to become a geoscientist. Was it only to prove the teacher wrong, or were there other factors that influenced your decision?
Well, thank you for that question. I think my desire to become a geoscientist, just like many geoscientists, is by chance. A geoscience is not a profession that many people grow up and aspire to become one. Geology is, or what geophysics is, or what they even do, which is kind of unfortunate. There is geology everywhere. We live on the earth, and geologic processes that surround us. I mean, for example, look at the recent earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Those are all geologic processes at play, and yet, at the end of it, people don't even know that as earth scientists, we play such an important role in helping or in providing the knowledge that allows us to be able to understand these geologic processes and how we can mitigate them. So I never knew of any geologists. And it was just by, I don't know if it's fate, class, surprise, and ended up in this random geology course. And we find out that many of our students come into geology or into the geosciences by taking that one course, that introductory course, and they love it. And so for me, I found myself in this class just because I couldn't get into my math class. And so I ended up in this random geology class. And as you've heard my story, the instructor at the time um, was surprised to see so many girls in that class because really, as I even look back, that I knew. I'm not even sure that they, when I grew up in Cameroon at the time. So, and was really surprised that there were so many student girls in the class and basically told us what girls don't like geology. So why are you guys here? And you're just gonna hold back the boys. And I was really challenged because I didn't want anybody telling me that I could. So I told him that I'd like to stay in the class if he would do just as well as any boy in the class. It wasn't just proving him that I could do geology, was because for anybody who's in that introductory geology class, it is such, I mean, I got so mesmerized about geologic processes, geologic landforms, the earth, how it works. And and so in a sense he truly inspired me because he was such a great teacher. And so that's why even today I say put the best teachers in front of your introductory classes because that's how you can inspire some students to follow their passion. So while I still wanted to go to medical school because that's what my parents wanted me to do, and because that was really the only profession that you do if you were a science student. And even today, we find out that most parents feel very proud when their kids go to medical school, and they all want all their kids to go to medical school. And it's unfortunate because there are so many other professions in the science that people could really do, discover their passions, and really contribute without necessarily going to medical school. And we put ourselves in this shoebox because that's all we know. And so for me, I became really passionate about geology and I continue to be in awe of geology processes. And didn't know it then, but I feel like maybe I was destined to be an earth scientist.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Estella. That was a beautiful answer. Yeah, me too. I wanted to become a medical doctor. Yeah, but back here in Nigeria, you have issues with JAM. They'll just push you into geology. So I found the course interesting. And I picked it up, and I'm in my fourth year now. It's been quite a good one for me. So yeah, that will lead me to my second question because since your parents actually wanted you to go into the medical sciences, what was their reaction when you decided to switch to geology? Did they agree with you? Like, how was it?
Well, you know, they didn't even know that I had switched to geology. I graduated because I had come to school at Howard University and my parents were back home in Cameroon. And all they knew was I was doing well in school. So they didn't know. So my mom only discovered when she was coming for my graduation, and they were not very happy at all. Not happy. I mean, and my story is the same like every other kid, right? Your parents want you to do a certain thing, and you find your passion doing something else. They get very upset, they get very angry. Sometimes they don't speak to you for weeks and months and years because you disappointed them. But I convinced them that this is what I wanted to do by letting them know that I would go on and do a PhD. In fact, that was my motivation for going on to do a PhD, so they could still call me doctor if that's what they wanted. So maybe they disappointed them. Instead, I'm in jeans and boots and all the other things that geologists wear. So eh, but my parents are also very understanding, and at least they gave me the space. And I saw today they're very proud. They
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful one after graduation. All
yes.
right. So that will lead me to my the next question. Having measured in geology in your bachelor's and in your master's, why did you choose to focus on geophysics during your PhD?
Yeah. That was really interesting because I had taken a course as an undergraduate student in geophysics. And I was just fascinated with the fact that you could place sensors on the earth and be able to get a beautiful image of the subsurface that tells you what's going on. And so I wanted to do. So it was almost, it's like medical imaging, right? As geophysicists, it's like medical imaging. Either you're looking at the gravitational field of the earth, or you're looking at the magnetic field of the earth, or you're looking at seismology. You get these beautiful images of subsurface that allows you to begin to understand how the earth formed and the processes that are operating within the earth. And so I just found that to be really fascinating. And so I decided then that, for my PhD, that's what course, that was a challenge, as you know that when you do the switch from geology to geophysics, that requires a lot more math classes, a lot more physics courses. I spent the first year of my PhD taking a lot of math classes.
Wow. Yeah, I think I kind of resonate with you because I major in geological sciences, but most of my research work has been on geophysics. You know, you have to do a lot of physics, lot of maths. And when you hear those physics guys talking all those things, so that's beautiful. Thank
Ah,
you
yeah,
for sharing
definitely.
that. So our next question would be, as a female, what was
Yes.
it like to become a professor of geophysics in the 90s? Was there any gender discrimination then?
Wow. It was a different world. I'm so surprised when I go to, I'm just full of awe when I go to national meetings today and I see so many female scientists. Um, For me, it's even not just being only a female, being a female geoscientist or geophysicist, but also being a black person. I was doing my PhD, for example. I was the only black student. Um, I was pursuing geophysics in my department. In fact, there were only two black students when I was going to school. I was at university at the time. And then when I left Dalhousie and I moved to take on my first academic position at Western Michigan University, I was the first female faculty to ever be hired by that program. I was the first black faculty to ever be hired by that program. I don't even know if they've even ever hired any more black people since I left that program. So I found myself in a lot of spaces where I was the first. I'm being isolation. Um, there is a loneliness. I didn't have any mentors that looked like me, not female, black in the geosciences. So it was a very lonely where somebody people could not understand who you are from and how you approach problems. So it was a tough time in those days. Let me put it that way. Not very easy. My colleagues in the department at the time really did not know what to do with me. They had never really had another woman. So how do you engage? that person. Today, I have mentoring programs that are set up in different departments to support your early career faculty, right? So that they have a mentor that they can talk to, somebody they can go. And so for me, I just adopted somebody that I felt was approachable. And so this person did not even know it, that serving like my de facto mentor. And I would just go to them when I had questions and ask them to help me. That I was I was alone. That's basically what it was. That it's an and and I think that continues to be a problem today. That even though we now have more female, we're still not many of them. There's still not many of them. Geophysics still continues to be dominated by um, uh, men, so to speak. And so that's why I've just, after my experiences, I've really dedicated my career to supporting and mentoring uh, uh, those from marginalized communities. And like they need a mentor. I've just wanted to be and serve that role for them.
Wow, thank you so much. That was so inspiring and motivating to be the first in kind of isolated area far from home, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm.
Like,
Oh. So having all these experiences like isolation, being the first and all that, how did you rise to become the dean of the College of Letters and Science at the University of California?
no, I sometimes when I look at myself and where I am right now, I was like, I can't believe it because um, there was nothing in my history that could have predicted that I will be where I am today. Absolutely nothing. As I've said, I was never really set up for success. Um, when I started my academic career, or just sheer hard work, supporters that I got along the way that helped me to be here, right? Because it always takes a village. Even if you don't have formal mentors, there's still some people who do uh, indirect dean. I never really thought I wanted to be a dean. It's just happened, and it happened because of my passions. I became very, um, again, as I've said, I only went and did a PhD because I wanted to please my parents. So after the PhD, what do you do with a PhD? I'm a professor. So that's how come I became a professor. It's not because, again, I decided to be a professor, right? To say, oh, I'm going to get this PhD and I'm going to teach at a university. No, actually, didn't even think about that. But then I realized that when I started teaching, how much I enjoyed it. I really love doing research. So, yes, being a professor, being in academics was the perfect job for me, even if that was not my plan, to be our students. And even in those early days when it was not very common to engage undergraduate research, I started engaging some undergraduate students in research. I have find little projects, take them out to get work done. And then I started understanding as I worked with students more, I started recognizing some of the struggles and the challenges that students have. Starting out as an early career faculty, the challenges that I was having, I then decided that, I really want to help people avoid some of these challenges or equip students and younger faculty or early career faculty that they need to be successful. Well, if you're thinking that way, then to become a department chair. Because as an individual faculty, I had done really good in being able to support students through my research programs and engage them, but I was limited, right? So my sphere of influence was typically limited to the students that I taught in the classroom. But if I wanted to have real programs like how do we really work with students that are struggling, how now with other people, I couldn't do it in my life where I said, you know, what do I want to do with the rest of my career? I built a pretty successful research career. I had done all the teaching that I needed to do. I could continue to teach, but I wanted more impacts into administration. And let me tell you, when I came to that realization, it surprised me because most people, most university professors think that administrators are not, that's not what they want to do. You know, when you love your research and you're passionate about your research, that's what you want to do for the rest of your life. Always make the joke that you've gone onto the dark side. I remember the day that I said, I think I want to become the department head. And people really, this makes no sense at all. This job as a scientist, as a researcher, do you know that you're going to be giving up your research? No matter how I asked that question, the answer was this is what I really want to do. I want to have a bigger impact. I want to leave a legacy that truly transforms the lives of students and even how university. So that's how I became a department head. I applied for a job that was open and I got it and really worked to transform the culture, to bring that change that truly supports students to be the best that they can be. So that's how. And then once I became a department head, the next thing I knew was I was applying for jobs to be a dean, and I became a dean. Delaware spent 4 years at the University of Delaware, and then in 2021 I joined the UC University of Davis as the as the dean of the college.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much. I think quite motivating talking about finding your purpose, passion, and then hard work. Right. Thank you so much, Ma, for that, for sharing that experience with us. That's so inspiring. Wow. So moving on to my next question. As a pioneer in the field of biogeophysics, before I say this question, let me just say I resonate with you on I'm kind of research inclined. I always want to work in the research institute and inspiring students too. So, as a pioneer in the field of biogeophysics, what actually inspired your biogeophysical research? Was it because of your you wanted to join medical school? What actually inspired you to go into using geophysics to study microbial activities in the earth?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. It was just serendipity. You know, when I look at my life and the things that I've been able to do, I always say serendipity, right? It's like planned sheer luck when opportunity or preparation meets opportunity. And what happened was that um, we I was invited by one of my colleagues to go to work at the hydrocarbon contaminated site. And the question was, can we use geophysics to delineate where the hydrocarbon plume is in the subsurface? And that was a really important question in the early 90s because we're beginning to recognize that, oh, by the way, our gas stations were, the storage tanks were leaking and contaminated groundwater. And this particular site was an Air Force base, and the contamination resulted from JP4 jet fuel because it's an Air Force base, right? And so we wanted to do that. And so we used ground penetrating radar And we got a response from the ground petroleum radar that was inconsistent with our understanding of what the predicted response would be, right? So when we look at geophysics, basically is based on the contrast in physical properties between a target and the background. And so oil is an insulator. And so we would predict that if we have um, oil that is spilled in the subsurface, our response, if we apply electrical resistivity, the response would be what? A resistive response. That's how we do for oil in the oil industry using reservoir characterization, and we do resistivity logging. And so that was the idea, and everybody. So we just been to a meeting, and everybody is presenting all this work from hydrocarbon contaminated sites that is showing that the ground penetrating radar is not what we expect to have, like bright reflections, due to the contrast in dielectric properties between the oil and the water, and the oil replacing the water. But what we were seeing was a zone of what they call muted, attenuated GPR reflections. We went to our data, and despite what the lab experiments had showed us, observing what everybody else had been observing, which is, so we said, let's just collect electrical resistivity as well. We did. And lo and behold, the electrical resistivity data did not show a resistive response. Instead, it showed a conductive subsurface in the areas where we had the attenuated GPR reflection. Physically, that makes sense, right? That conductivity would actually attenuate electromagnetic waves. So, why having these attenuated GPR reflections? Not just acquired both resistivity and GPR. So again, that talks about the value of integrated geophysical techniques. One technique may not give you the full story. A second technique, a third technique begins to really unravel a lot about, the subsurface. So because of our electrical resistivity data, we now knew that that subsurface environment was conductive. But the big question then became, oil is supposed to be resistive. Why is it conductive? So you have to always ask questions. If you believe that you have acquired your data and that it's correct, which means there are no errors, no mistakes, you have to believe your data. And don't be dismissed your data just because um, it's not consistent with what the paradigm says. And I think the mark of a good scientist is to always question. You got to always question your data, especially when it has not given you the results that you expected. You got to question it. And then you have to ask, don't dismiss that observation. And then you have to ask, is there an alternative way for us to explain this? So we started looking at the literature. Fortunately for us, or luckily for us at that time, geomicrobiology was developing rapidly as a field where we're beginning to understand the impact of microorganisms and their interactions with subsurface media and how they were transforming that subsurface media. At this particular site, we were also fortunate to have had geochemistry data. When we looked at the geochemistry data, in all fluid conductivity within the contaminated zone was 5 times higher than outside the contaminated zone. Question is why? So we started looking at the literature. We discovered then that microbiology, geomicrobiologists, and environmental microbiologists had just made that discovery that microorganisms can, in fact, break binds with water to form carbonic acid. Carbonic acid. They can also during that process. These acids, we know now that acids enhance mineral weathering. that, or what we're able to do was to provide an explanation for why our hydrocarbon contaminated environments forms carbonic acid. Acids enhance the weathering of the environments. And that was the explanation for why we had a high conductivity and why we had the muted GPR reflections. And that is how biogeophysics was actually born, because able to make the link that geophysical properties, that was profound at the time. Because as geophysicists, we always think in terms of physics, right? We're talking about physical properties, and we think that everything must be explained by the physics of the earth. But meanwhile, processes that can change that physics. That's basically what biogeophysics has been doing, have an understanding of how microorganisms in fact modulate, geophysical signatures.
Wow. Well, thank you
Kind
so
of a long
much.
response, but
I kind of I enjoyed it. I'm sure that our audience did. They responded in the comment section. That was quite thrilling. Yeah, knowing that biological activities can actually change the physical properties of
yes.
the earth.
The key
So
takeaways,
much.
the key takeaways like that. As a scientist, when you collect data, yes, literature to be able to allow us or what we understand on the fundamentals about the fundamental science to data that does not fit in that mold, rather than throw it away and say the data is wrong. Do not be afraid to question that data and ask yourself, what else could explain this? What is made at the fringes of science, not necessarily at the core. And so that was the discovery that we think we made, was because we questioned. We did not accept the current paradigm in geophysics, that we had to explain it by some physical means. Went outside the box, and sometimes your answers may not lie in your field, in your discipline. It may lie outside your. That's also the value of interdisciplinary work, because people are coming angles, right? And they're seeing the problem from a different angle, and they're providing a solution of more collaborative or interdisciplinary research.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hey, I'm really learning a lot, and I'm sure the audience are. Thank you so much.
Yes.
So that brings us to our next question. With a lot of experience in collaborative research that has attracted fundings, what can you say are the key components of research grants applications?
Hmm. So, um, that's when I think about my research career, and the ability to be able to write research grants is founded to read the literature. So I tell students that when you read the literature, have a broad understanding of what's going on in your field. So, uh, what you should also be trying to understand, have that understanding, then it's difficult to contribute. So, I think writing successful research grants, number one, is being able to ask those questions that nobody has ever. Just give you the example of biogeophysics, where we asked that question, but why is this area conductive, and not resistive. You discover that, oh, by the way, microorganisms are playing a role. So then you can now write a proposal looking at trying to have advance the understanding of how these microorganisms uh, are able to change their physical properties. So I think the first questions that nobody is asked to try to advance understanding, you can having a good command um, weekly area of study. Even some that maybe far afield they have some um, implications. You should be reading those because writing a good research proposal to get funding is you got to be pushing the boundaries of science. Nobody's going to give you money to do the same thing that everybody else is doing because we always want to add to the knowledge. So I think that's really the first thing. Looking at how do we reach the continents. When I started working in East Africa, most people working on understanding the East African reef system, they were focused more on the eastern branch of the East African reef system. There was very little western branch or even in the younger parts of the rift. And so I asked the question, if magma is playing a very important role in rifting, how come in Botswana, where I started this work, there was no magma associated with the Okavango Reef Zone? There's no magma associated with it, then what is causing that rifting? So that's the question I was asking that nobody had really satisfactorily answered. So to define the problem, and your ability to be able to define the problem has to come with your understanding of the literature and where there is that gap in knowledge. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is what are the best tools to solve this problem? I, as a single person, have all the answers. Can I solve it given my expertise? And from what I know now, I'm like, no, usually by yourself, you can solve it. So, who else has the necessary skills that to help me to solve this problem? That's when I think either multidisciplinary research comes in or collaborative work comes in. Because if I'm unable to answer these questions by myself, then I need to partner with other complement my skill set so that we can write this proposal together. That's the approach that I have used for a lot of my work. That has been very, very collaborative because I knew that I didn't have all the skills and I needed to work with other people. And I uh, work, work with other people, then you can.
Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing that. I think from what you said, read the literature well, so you'll be able to identify the gap, and then necessary skills, looking for people that one can work with to actually answer the question. Thank you so much, Ma. I think we have a question here. Nicolette Freeporn said, fascinating work, Dr. Atekwana. Question regarding crude oil site. Does the water table fluctuation affect geophysical responses? That is, iron minerals that can be delineated by magnetic susceptibility.
Thank you, Nicolette, for that question. As you know, we published some work in I don't know 2014 or 2015, where we recognized that within the water table fluctuation zone, actually, it turns out the water table fluctuation zone is the most biogeochemically active zone in the subsurface because that rise and fall of the water tables You bring in fresh nutrients, that the microorganisms like, and you activate them, and they work really hard to break down the hydrocarbons. And so, if you do have iron reducing bacteria in the subsurface, then a byproduct of that, of course, is iron 2 plus. And that iron 2 plus, sometimes, depending on what the used and depending on the geochemistry of the aquifer, can result in the precipitation of magnetite. So what we showed in that 2014 paper is that the water table fluctuation zone actually is a zone where magnetite is precipitated, and you can actually measure that using magnetic susceptibility. So yes, to your question, we can use magnetic techniques then to be able to infer the presence of ion reducing bacteria or microorganisms that are able to precipitate magnetite either directly or indirectly.
Oh, thank you so much, ma. Nicolette, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, thank you so much. Moving on to my next question here. So, okay, that answered the question. Thank you. So the next question is, what are the mistakes you have seen or think that women make that prevents them from taking charge of their careers? And then, in what ways do you think women hold themselves back from reaching their full potential?
Well, number one, I mean, just being in the male dominated environment sometimes is tough to make your way through. Doesn't say that you can't. But what I have found that I see in many of my female students, for example, is that we self eliminate. What does that mean? We just, uh, there's an opportunity to apply for a scholarship. We decide that they will never give it to us, so we don't apply. Or we feel that we are not good enough, so we don't apply. Not everybody, but there are some people. When you have that mindset where you prevent yourself from even giving yourself that opportunity, I think that can really hold you back in your career. One thing that I've observed. And so I tell my students you have to have what I call a can do attitude. I can do it. No matter how it is, how hard it is, how tall it is, how high it is, I can do it. And so having that mindset can really help you to move forward, because then you're not limited. The other thing also is being able to be to be and not only for women, but in general. Some students don't want to leave home or move very far away from home because they want to be close to their family, or they feel like, oh, there's just no way I can do this. So if you look at biography, as a young, I had just become an associate professor, so I had tenure. And I had to go on sabbatical. I didn't know where to go because remember in those days I didn't know anybody. And I didn't know any famous scientists whose lab I could go spend. That's what people do. You take a sabbatical, you go spend time in a famous person's lab, and you learn more. Well, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any. And so one student encouraged me that I should go to Botswana. Hmm. Botswana, I've never been to Botswana. I'm originally from Cameroon, not from Botswana. I didn't know anything about the country. Something that was really bold and gutsy, as they say. I picked up my three kids. It was a strange country to me, just like moving to America was a strange country to me. But look at my career, that Botswana launched my international research program. Through that program, I've had the opportunity to take US students to Africa, all over East African Reef System areas. I've been able to take young, uh, early career faculty and engage them in that research. Supported a lot of African students, brought them to the US through my research projects, helped develop capacity in Africa. That would never have happened if I'd allowed fear. and in the way if I'd not taken that risk. Of course, I never knew that all of this was going to happen, right? But by allowing myself to take that risk and do that, it really opened up a whole new career for me. Uh, Continue to work on problems and scientific questions related to the East African race system, but that would never have happened. I would have said, I'm a young mother, I can't do it. I don't have the support system, I can't do it. This is totally crazy. How do you go to a strange African country all by yourself and three kids? That was crazy. I can tell you that it was crazy. But I was naive at the time that I was able to do that, and I'm glad. So
Thank you.
don't self eliminate yourself. I think you need to remain flexible. Sometimes it is okay to take a risk. Is it nothing ventured, nothing gained? So I ventured, and I think in the end, I did gain something.
All right. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you. I think yeah, it happens, right? Self-elimination. We don't even want to take the risk at all. And then
Mhm.
we don't want to expand our horizons. Thank you for sharing that experience and the impacts that you got through it. Hmm. I'm sure we're all living here motivated and inspired to do more. So that will bring us to our next question. I think we're almost getting to the top of the hour. Um, what are some of, although you've started sharing them, but what are some of your success habits?
I would say that um, I'm a goal setter. I like to set goals for myself. And even every morning I come into work, I set a goal and I say, this is what I want to accomplish today. Because in reality, I'm all over the place. I get distracted and I never accomplish anything. I'm somebody who likes to accomplish things. I like to make progress. And so with and I set those goals, and seriously, I literally look at them every day during the day, throughout the day. Oh, did I accomplish this? Oh, I got distracted. I go back to it. So it setting goals is so important because it allows you to stay focused. Doesn't mean that my life is all about goals that you don't have time to do other things. But I'm saying when I want to make progress that goal, it allows me to measure my success and measure how far I have gone. But that encourages me and motivates me. So that's one of the things that I would really say advice is set some goals for you, goals on different aspects of your life, not just your career, even your family. What are some family goals that you want to set for your family? You want to go do something different as a family. So just setting goals, I think, has really allowed me to be able to stay focused. But so is I've remained very flexible. Um, and with that flexibility has allowed me to be open to embracing change. When I left Dalhousie University and I went to Western Michigan University, my research had actually been on tectonics. So when I got to Western, and all of a sudden I find myself in a program that was mostly environmental. So what do I do? Do I say, you know what, I've just spent 4 years doing a PhD and I'm just going to stick to my tectonic work? I realized then that it wasn't going to go too far, that I needed to do something. So that's when I expanded. And I say I use the term expanded deliberately because some people feel like they have to give up that tectonic research altogether. I didn't. I kept it in the back burner. And that's what allowed me to pick it up when I went to University of expanded my horizons now in years of geophysics. So I was willing to learn new things. And that's how come. And then we realized that, you know what, in geophysics is geophysics. Whether you're looking at the core or you're looking at the near surface, the same principles of geophysics apply. It's just a scale that is different. And so I really reinvented myself and I became, nope, this is what I did for my PhD. This is the only thing I know how to do. I'm going to go down that path. And even when there's so many barriers down your path, you just keep trying to plow through and you can plow through and you fail. But say, okay, here's a barrier. Is there a way that I can go around it? And so I've never seen those barriers as, hey, for me, barriers are not challenges, they're opportunities for growth. Get out of my comfort zone and experience new things. That's what I really believe has really helped me. And as I look back in hindsight, I would say have a plan. You know, when you have a plan on what you want to do, a plan is a roadmap. So that is why, as an administrator, I love strategic plans. Strategic plans gives me a sense of direction. So having that plan for your life is so important because it can help. It helps you to stay on track, and it helps you to accomplish your dreams. Follow the passion of being a geoscientist. But now, I said if I had to turn back the clock, would I do things differently? I said by serendipity, I got into the geoscience world. I've been able to make an impact. I've been able to support Africa, lots of African students, lots of students from developing countries through my geoscience career. And I don't think I would have had that type of an impact, perhaps if I had gone to the medical school that my parents wanted me. So I've loved every minute of it, being able to impact the next generation. That's what excites me. That's what keeps me going. And so, that would be my advice is, be flexible, take those risks, set some goals, have a plan. Don't see challenges as but see it as an opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma. Thank you. Um, Goal setting, making plans, flexibility, and getting out of the comfort zone. Thank you so much. You were speaking of barrier, right? So that will lead us to our next question. What has been the most significant barrier in your career, and how did you overcome it?
If there's really significant, there've been many. Um, I think for me, sometimes it's just been um, it just been I've been in environments that I've said where I've been like on the woman, on the black sometimes. So just dealing with those racial issues, racial tensions, I think things that have really significantly impacted me. Sometimes even my mental health. You know, um, so I'm sure this is common for many women. Something and they don't hear different from you says and they're like, oh yeah, yeah, what you said was so great. And you're thinking, really, didn't I just say that? You know? So I think to me, those are undercurrents of have been that made me uncomfortable, that have really stretched me, you know, and made me uncomfortable, stressed me. So that I've dealt with. And sometimes people will look at me and say, "Oh, but you've achieved what you've done what you've achieved so far. Uh, why do you think you had problems?" So yeah, there were many problems. That throughout my career, being a black person and being a woman, that was dominated mostly by men.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ma, for sharing that
And I don't
experience.
want to, even when I go to Africa sometimes, I even see sometimes how my male colleagues in the African universities react towards me. It's like they still don't even though I'm coming from an America, I'm a dean, I still don't hold that same level as if I was a man, right? With that kind of a title, how many doors will be open for me? How many people want to, allow me to be able to want to aid and support me? And so it's a problem that we face. I think when you're a woman, and it's even more double whammy when you're a woman and you're a black person. Still don't, and you still have that problem. And even what I've achieved, when they see me, what do you see me? You see a black woman. Things I have, or even with all the things that I've been able to accomplish, you see a black person. You see a black woman. The bias comes in. The bias have not been that I couldn't pass exams, uh, that I couldn't do this, but it's always been those prejudice, bias that exist in society that makes it difficult sometimes for you to be heard.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us, Ma. So, what career advice would you provide students and young professionals who want to follow in your footsteps?
My advice really is, I think the geosciences is really in the crossroads. And I think that we have a lot of grand challenges. Wreak so much havoc. We're already seeing that. Flooding, many countries in Africa, across the world. Um, Droughts of food security or food insecurity, water insecurity, energy insecurity. There are lots of These are exciting times for those scientists. These are exciting times for us to make ourselves relevant. So society is not going to move forward, I don't believe, without geoscience knowledge about the earth that's related to earthquakes or climate, energy transition. How are we going to get there without those critical minerals? Even if, right, how are we going to get there without the critical minerals? We want to move to electric vehicles. Electric vehicles require a lot of earth material. We're going to get there. Want to look at renewable energy sources like geothermal, solar panels require materials that are coming from the earth. Geothermal requires that we understand where do we find these geothermal resources. So I really believe that geosciences is the most consequential science for the 21st century. So longer exert the important and the critical role that geoscientists play for a sustainable future. Right? Being geoscientists, we should let everybody for looking at the sustainable development goals. Geoscientists is going to play a really critical role. We have a book that is going to be coming out on geoscience in action and the role that geoscientists can play towards fulfilling the 17 Sustainable Development. That is that the younger generation want impactful science. They want what they do to be impactful. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to do here. So follow those passions. The passion of the young generation is they want to make an impact, they want to make a difference, they want to be able to solve societal problems. So we need to give them chance and allow them to.
Thank you so much, Mal. I think we are up to the top of the hour. It has been quite engaging, inspiring, and motivating at the same time. I really gained a lot, and I'm sure the audience did. So I sincerely want to appreciate you for making out time to be here today, despite your busy schedule. It's been a wonderful time listening to your experiences, and we hope that we can do this some other time. So thank you so much, Ma, on behalf of the SCG Women's Network Students Community. We sincerely appreciate you. Thank you so much, Dr. Estella.
And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be able to speak, to the students. Thank
Thank you. Bye. Okay, to the audience, bye. Thank you for
you.
being
Bye.
here. Okay. I'll end the live show now.